A couple minutes, give or take.
Gotta pull the string. Gotta mute the stream.
Hey, so, ooh, now it lets me do it. Will it? No. I don't know how to... YouTube's giving me a pop-up. It says I should click it, but it won't let me do it on my phone, and it's not giving me the pop-up on my... Never mind. Disregard, I'm, delirious. What was I doing? Oh yeah, stream. I got a tweet, of course, while I'm streaming. For those just joining us, I'm giving it a couple minutes before we start. Give people a chance to jump in because I tend to do these things without very much advance notice. And I did give notice today, but not very many people follow my Twitter. And I don't blame you, to be honest, because Twitter is a cesspool. But also, I just made it a couple months ago, and I don't really promote it, so I guess it's my fault. I'm gonna finish my tea, and then we'll start. Here is the kit. Admire it. Make me another cup. What'd you say to pumpkin spice? Yeah, that sounds good. How y'all doing tonight? I'm talking to the stream. I'm in the kitchen, but it's a small apartment, so it's not like I'm that far away. Alright, here we go. I got my tea. Everything's good. I'm pull the stream back up because for some reason I decided to minimize it. Alright. Cool. You guys see these charge cables? These things are super neat. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. Anyway. Trying to get stuff out of my way, off my desk. And hopefully I remembered to charge my lights. Yeah, the kit's linked in the description. I used my affiliate link because I was told I need to use it more and promote it. But if you browse their site, it's not too difficult to find. There's a bunch of new stuff. I wanted to do this one, but I also have this like windmill thing that I'm saving for next time when I figure out the best way to fit something this large in frame. And there was also, here it is, I've got this like LED ball thing, but that we're gonna save that for later because this looks rather tedious. I could be surprised. I have not looked at the instructions. I just looked at the end result, like usual, because of who I am as a person. And we're even gonna do something momentous here. Just because it feels appropriate for this kit. Where the hell is it? Alright, well, I used to have a J-tip. Okay, guess we're not using the J-tip. How's a boot? The chisel. Sit in here. Did I put it in the wrong tip drawer? Ah, I did put it in the wrong tip drawer. That's on me. Here's that better? They're out of frame now. J-tip. I like the K-tip, and I like the J-tip. I generally like the K-tip better for more things. Where do I even put it? Oh, it's under the Parmesan. I'm just going to keep that on my desk because, no, I'm going to put it away where it goes. Because otherwise that convenience spot will be, well, why didn't I put it away? Okay. Turn that on. Let's see what we got. Well, it comes with instructions. I didn't realize that. So hopefully I'm not missing anything. I've been treating this like a sealed bag, and it's not. So I opened the thing and immediately started flinging it around, and I realized right now it's not a sealed bag. Okay, but looks like all the parts are in a sealed bag, so it's probably not a problem, except for the bigger things, but those are still bound together. All right, so we get a giant PCB. This is actually looking like it's gonna go pretty quick. Let's speed run it. Maybe we'll have time for another one. What do you say? I wanted to whine about the instructions being not great, but realistically, these are some of the best instructions I've seen with a solder practice kit yet. Given that most don't even come with instructions, I think this is a wild step up. Sure, we'll save that. And I like it that it even gives you a schematic. Personally, I hate these schematics because if you don't know what you're looking for, this makes zero sense. But in the realm of PCB design, to make complicated schematics easier to understand, you often use these little pointer shortcuts, flags, whatever you want to call them. There is a specific name. I'm blanking on it. Doesn't matter. And like you just match up the number, like that's poo, and you just got to find where poo is, and poo's right there too. I'm not making that up. It says poo. I know it's P00, but anyway. But yeah, it's harder to follow than just like tracing a line with your finger or something. But it's nice having a schematic because the whole point of a solder practice kit is that you learn to solder on this instead of something expensive. And it's a good thing to experiment with. So if you're like trying to get used to new tools, or straight up just trying to learn to solder, and you mess something up, you have everything you need to fix it. It's on the back. Oh, more instructions. That's handy, because I'm not very good at puzzles. Not as good as I'd like to be. When I first looked at the instructions, this was all I saw, and that's why I was going to complain, but it's also in mostly legible English. Yeah, we'll figure it out. These are really cool modules. I always see stuff like this and think, oh yeah, I should make something with them, and then I like totally blank on what to even do. Like, what would I even do with this? It's cool, yeah, but what does it do? I mean, rather, what does it do that I can make use of? Oh, where's my bag? Try and keep things organized. Double-sided tape, that's probably to hold that down. So I'm gonna go flopping. And the funny thing is the K-tip would have actually probably been better for this, but it's whatever. Soldering iron's already heated up, so we're committed to the bit. We'll attach those later. Yeah, there are not very many components. Oh, that is for that. And it comes with one of the most useless cables of all time. 2 USB-A. They should have put it like at least a mini USB on it. I hate mini USB, but mini USB is better than that. I'm gonna save this till later. All right, so let's get started. We are going to start with the resistor because I'm following the instructions, and that's what the instructions say to do. But also because when you're doing through-hole soldering, it makes sense to do the smallest components first, because when you lay it down, the gravity of the board will hold the part in place. And for those new to soldering, let's go ahead and bring that in. Is that going to work? Yeah, it is. Let's go over what I just did. Actually, I'm going to finish doing this one, and then we'll go over the next one. That's it. I mean, obviously we got to do more components, but... Alright. So next we are going to do the capacitor. Now, big electrolytic capacitors like this, this is a rather small one, but small ones are quite a bit smaller, and I know this is a resistor, but same size. But it's important to pay attention to electrolytic capacitors, these little can type ones, because these have a direction. If you put them in backwards, not only do they not work, they tend to explode. Or is that tantalums? They don't work backwards. I'm pretty sure they explode. So don't do that. In this particular case, we want to take a look for the stripe or the short leg.
I tend to rely on the stripe because I'm usually working with boards that are already assembled and thus the legs will be trimmed. But we just got to match up the stripe with the stripe on the board, and in case your board doesn't have that, the stripe side is the ground or the negative. So we want to pop that in right there, but with enough slack that we can lay it down. And I want to put it right on the footprint just to make it nice and pretty. And as far as actually soldering this thing goes, so I'm using the weight of the board to kind of hold the part in place. And I'm going to put my soldering iron between the leg of the component and the base, the pad itself, and then I'm going to feed fresh solder into that joint and then remove the iron. That's it. That's all you do. A lot of people have misconceptions about soldering where they think they have to add solder to the iron and then try and transfer it over to the joint. And I mean, you can get that to work, but if you do that, you're going to have a bad time. So compare those two joints. The one on the left, I did the proper way. You got a nice fillet going. It's a little light on solder, but it's okay. Compared to the one on the right, which doesn't even cover the whole joint. There's a big old hole in it. So we are going to redo that one the proper way. Sometimes you got to reposition the iron to get it in the right spot, but she'll be right, mate. And let's add a little bit more solder to the other one just to make it a little prettier. And then we're going to clip these leads down because they are a little bit on the long side and we don't want them to short on each other. And ta-da! It's that easy. See, you can see I was stingy with solder on the negative terminal, and there's not a lot of solder on this side. There's plenty on this side. It's perfectly fine. But I'm going to touch it up. Oh, that's the positive. No. Yeah, that's the negative. Whew. It's not that complicated, you know, flip it over. That's negative, but that's the one that I did not solder properly. So let's touch that up again. Just going to come in here, feed in a little bit of fresh solder, and that's it. And usually that's enough. In this case, I'm not happy with it, so I'm going to come in from the top too. Ta-da! Nice, beautiful, efficient, easy. All right, next it says to do this capacitor. Now this is a ceramic capacitor, and unlike electrolytic capacitors, these do not have a direction. They are not polarized, so you can set it whichever way you want. It does not matter. In this specific case, I'm going to set it so that I can bend it and have the text face up. That's it. There's no, there's literally no reason for that. That is not aesthetics. And in this case, since I did the bigger part first, and this one's hanging off the board a little bit, I just tacked down one leg. I'm going to put my finger on it, and be careful doing this because these parts can get pretty hot. But apply a little bit of pressure, just a little bit. Don't need a lot. Gonna melt the joint down, and then it pops into place. Usually you hear a little bit of a click as the solder releases, and the part slaps against the board, but we didn't get one this time. It's okay. We're just gonna keep going. It's gonna be good. Neil, my friend, the Slate was a passion project. Nothing more, nothing less. I've got other stuff that I'm working on. I'm not going to say what it is at this moment because I made that mistake with the Slate and I haven't lived it down for the past 2 years. So sorry about that, but you'll know more when it's done. Next, it says to solder down the socket for the, what is this? It's totally unlabeled. I have no idea what this is. What do the instructions say it is? STC15F2KS0 or 60S2. I'm pretty sure this is a microcontroller, which means it's probably pre-programmed. I'll have to Google that part number and find out like what it is specifically. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was slightly out of frame. All right, so in the case of the socket, it really doesn't matter too much which direction you put it in because it's just the socket and the chip is going to fit both ways. But because the socket is going to cover up the marking on the board, we want to make sure it gets aligned because the socket itself has the same marking. It has that little half moon cutout on this side, but not on that side. So just drop that in. Oh, nuts. I shouldn't have bent that capacitor that way. I should have bent it that way. So now it's in the way of my socket. Or, realistically, we just don't have to bend it flat. Yeah, that should be fine. Cool. Flip it over. Again, using the gravity of the board to hold it in place. I am going to do one corner. Let that solidify, come back, and do the other corner. I am also pressing down on the board so that I make sure the socket gets attached nice and flush. And then once the two corners are down, we can just go to town here. You know what? I need a little bit more heat. I want to move a little bit quicker than this. Boom. Look at that. Easy. Oh, you know what I can totally do to make my life easier? Not at all necessary, but I literally have PCB devices, so boom. Wow, thanks for joining us, Mike. Talking about J-tips. I decided to switch things up. Sue me. I still think K-tip is better. But you know how it is, you know, sometimes you just gotta switch things up a little. I don't think I'm wrong. I think I'd be able to do this a lot quicker with a K-tip. Because I could just zoop. But I wasn't having any luck when I tried that with this one. But that's what solder practice kits are for. Boom. Done. turn the heat down now before I forget about it. Okay. Magnets. Alright, next it says to do the USB port, which goes right here. Oh, they're just using USB for 5-volt in, so I can probably I have an idea. I kind of want to try it. We'll try it later. Never mind. I'm gonna set that in there. The USB port has these little tabs on it that are holding it in place, so I'm not too worried about it. And the legs on there are very large holes, so they need a lot of solder. That's not the only thing. Never mind. Hey, Mr. V. Thanks for being one of my snacks. I originally named that tier because I wanted to emphasize that you're literally just buying me snacks. But I don't think that got translated very well, so... what next? I feel like I'm missing a part. Like, this wasn't at all in any of the steps unless I totally missed it. Alright, whatever. Where does it go? I bet it goes right there. So on this part, this is a transistor. It is more or less an electronic switch where there are 3 legs. One of them is ground, one of them is power in, one of them is power out. Not ground. No, I'm sorry. I am totally misspeaking. Disregard that. They are basically an electronic switch. But what it does is when it senses power on one of the legs, it passes the power from the other 2 legs between the 2 legs. It is directional. They are usually not in this footprint because they usually use newer parts, but we can work with this. One of the sides of the transistor is flat. Just match that up with the silkscreen on the board. To bend the legs out a little. I'll never understand why they do that, but here we are. Oh no! I just dragged my soldering iron across the back of my light. Oops. You know, the plastic light. Whoopsie doodle. Have to figure out something better eventually. Oh, also I set up the tiers literally just because I want to be able to use emoji in chat. It occurs to me now that I probably should have put a Slate in there, but whatever. I'll add that later. I can't do anything now. Alright, should we just wing it? Because the instructions skip a lot of parts. We're just gonna wing it from here on out. I'll do the speaker first. So interestingly, speakers usually aren't polarized, and I don't know if this one is actually polarized, but just in case it is, we're gonna try and match that up. So if you see on there, there's a little plus and a minus on the back, and on the board itself, there's also a plus and the ground stripe. We'll just match that up, just in case. Okay, wait, hang on. I gotta roll that back. I gave bad information again. I should just stop talking. Speakers are polarized. They work in both directions, and when you only have one speaker, it's not at all a problem. But if you have two speakers and one of them is in a different polarity than the other, and they're both playing the same track, the waveforms will cancel out. It's the weirdest thing, but it was a very, very hard lesson to learn. It's very counterintuitive, but it's a thing. And it's how a lot of those, I don't know how they do it now, but previously, 10 years ago, you know how you can get those like versions of songs with the lyrics edited out? That's usually how they do it. They just invert the track, or invert one of the two channels, and it almost always ends up canceling out the lyrics. The lyricist. Cool. We're doing good. We're doing good. We're almost there. I don't know how they do it now. I mean, I'm sure like a lot of Hey Mike, if the J-tip is so good, how come I need to use more heat for it? Riddle me that, Batman. Anyway. I'm sure a lot of studios release like karaoke versions of popular songs these days anyway, so it's not really a problem. But like the bootleg ones, I'm talking about the bootleg ones. I should be using my vice. But I'm stubborn. I'm not having a good time with this last button. Yucky solder joints. Okay. You can call me bad if you want, but I think we both know who's better at soldering here. Ooh, he said it. No, I'm kidding. I'm definitely inexperienced with the J-tip. Are these bi-directional? Nah, I just like the K-tip. I don't normally use the J-tip. For those who are just tuning in, have no idea what the heck I'm talking about, the K-tip on the soldering iron is this big ol' like blade tip. I get a lot of flack for using this thing because people look at it and go, "Oh my god, that's so big, you can't solder with that." I regularly solder 0201 resistors with it. Not a single problem. And for context, here is my handy dandy ruler guide. If you look at the size of my thumb compared to 0201, or even the soldering iron, you can see my soldering iron covers 3 very liberally spaced out components. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I do have a problem with 0201. They're freaking small and they're hard to solder by hand, but my problem is my eyes, not my soldering iron. I gotta break out the microscope for him usually. But it's not the tip. Okay. These are directional. Okay, that's good to know. So we want to put the text with the text. That's a really crummy alignment indicator, but sure. Oh, Christ, Hazy, don't remind me. So, for those who don't know what Hazy is talking about, YouTube actually tried giving me a strike a couple weeks ago. Was it last week? Because I linked to a picture in the description of one of my videos holding something like this. All right? Literally just a picture of my hand with something in it. I got a strike for, or excuse me, I got a warning. I used up my one and only warning because their AI decided that my thumb looked like a penis. So thanks for that. And now that I've just said that word, I'm probably going to trigger their AI in some other stupid way. I should have done the LEDs before this tall button. That was a mistake. I argued with the guy who may or may not have been a robot. I genuinely can't tell anymore, and that's kind of spooky. And they're telling me, oh yeah, this is why we give warnings as the first strike instead of an actual strike. And it's like, wait, no. You're telling me that your robot messed up and now I don't get a warning, but literally everyone else does? That's not okay. And they just handled me until I went away. I'm still pissed about it. It's so freaking stupid. Alright, for these LED panels, I'm doing the same thing I did with that socket. Just doing one corner at a time. But in this case, I'm lifting it up and then putting pressure on it to make sure it's nice and flush with the board. And now that it is, let's go full send. Easy. I messed a couple of these up, didn't I? Good enough. Anyway. This is the same thing. This is directional, polarized, but in this case we have decimal points on the board and on the LED panel, so ain't too bad to figure this one out. Oh, mine's missing a pin. I hope that's, let's desolder that and double check. Ah, that's probably fine. It doesn't look like there's a pin falling off. It looks like it just has that many pins. So let us try to get that realigned and drop back in. Easy. That was a very nasty joint, but it's good enough for now. So I will talk about that in just a second. Let me finish up the rest of these real quick. Cool. So let's take a look at this joint specifically. It is perfectly adequate, but it could be better. So you see it doesn't have an even fillet. There's this gunk hanging off the side. It's just kind of overall nasty. The solder joint should be nice and shiny and reflective. It's kind of hard to see on the stream. I'm sure the YouTube bit muncher is gonna totally destroy it, but it should be nice and shiny. And there are two ways we can fix this. The easy way is to just take more solder and feed it into the joint while you're heating it up, but the other way is the more technically appropriate way, and that is to use a little bit of flux, add it to the joint, and then just reheat it, and then the flux will do its thing, and we're left with a nice, shiny, even joint, just like that. So the reason solder works in place of flux is if you look at your roll of solder, and in this particular case I'm using this Kester No Clean, what is it, 6337, but I bet this isn't labeled. Nope, it's not labeled. Okay. That's okay. Because just because that's a bad example doesn't mean it's my only example. This is the solder that I used to use, and I literally only switched because I think the novelty of having Archer branded Radio Shack solder is neat. But you notice this is called rosin core solder. The stuff I'm using is the exact same stuff, and unless you specifically seek out solder that does not have a rosin core, all solder is going to be rosin core. Like that's the default offering. Trust me, you do not want solder that does not have a rosin core. What is a rosin core, you might ask? It's basically flux. The rosin, it's not quite the same as flux, and I bet that's not going to come out, is it? Whatever. When it melts down, it acts as flux. You can see that's what all this sticky stuff on my board is. That is the rosin that I never bothered to clean up. And I usually don't bother to clean it up because it shouldn't harm anything here. It is good practice to clean it up, but I'm not gonna. But the easy way is just like take an old toothbrush, some IPA, and scrub it, and Bob Jonty. But the reason we want to use rosin or flux is because it acts as, it does multiple things to solder. One of those things is that it lowers the surface tension. Raises the surface tension? Whatever, doesn't matter. It messes with the surface tension and makes the solder flow quite a bit easier. The second major thing that it does is that it breaks down any corrosion on the joint. Now, You sit there, you hear me say corrosion. I'm not talking about water damage. I'm talking about the oxide layer that forms on the surface of solder. A lot of people don't know this, but solder will oxidize if you leave it alone long enough. And by long enough, I mean literally basically as soon as it hardens with no flux. Yes, sorry, Hazi. I was getting there. I was using the wrong word. I did mean oxidation. I suppose that's more technically correct. But a lot of people don't know that solder will form an oxide layer, and the oxide layer is non-conductive. But it's literally just the outer surface layer of the thing. And that is one of the reasons why, if you ever look at your multimeter probes, they are nice and sharp. And that is to poke through the oxide layer when you're probing solder joints. But that is one of the main reasons why, to pivot a little bit, whenever you're messing with a... okay, fine. I'll use this as an example, because it's in a clear housing. And I dropped it. Whenever you're using like a game cart for Game Boy or basically any Nintendo system, older Sega systems, okay, obviously not GameCube or Wii or Wii U, but you get my drift. They have these gold edges because gold is one of the most conductive materials that is affordable to put on something like this. It is a very, very fantastic material in that it is highly conductive, but more importantly, it is non-reactive. So it's not going to form an oxide layer, it's not going to tarnish, it shouldn't do anything. It should just sit there and conduct electrons to its heart's content. Whereas solder will form an oxide layer, so if you put solder over these gold pins, you're going to have a cart that reads just a few times, and then it's going to give you trouble. And the worst part is, solder is not, I'm forgetting the technical term for it, but it is not unreactive unlike gold. So what I mean by that, and someone can correct me and give me the proper term because I'm having a brain fart, but what I mean by that is if you put solder on these pins and insert it into a cart slot, eventually that solder is going to rub off and bond at the atomic level with the cart slot pins, and then you have oxide layers on both sides, and then I'm hoping you get the idea. Long term, it means your cart is going to suck and your cart reader is going to suck. Short term, yeah, it'll work if you like need to recover data off the cart. Like if this thing just had a total crap ton of water damage, but it used that battery to hold the save, you know, you can't get the save off this thing without repairing it. Inert. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. But yeah, that's like the only time it's acceptable to put solder on those gold pins. Anyone who says solder on those gold pins doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay, to the solder practice kit. We have our totally unlabeled IC, but all hope is not lost. You see, there is that little half moon indicator, that little half moon cutout on this side and not on this side. We can line that up with the PCB. I can still see the little half moon there, but I can also see the half moon in the socket. Half moon, half moon. And we will drop it in. The pins are a little bit stretched out on these chips usually, which makes socketing them kind of difficult, especially if you have bent pins. Try and bend these in a little. Clearly don't mess with these things very often. Of course, you can just skip the socket and solder the Jesus thing straight in, but you'd have to put the caps on the bottom. Boom. Easy. Thank you, ground control. That is very helpful. You know how it is. When the camera goes on, the brain shuts off. Look at that. Beautiful. So now we can use the battery holder or this silly USB thing. These cables are literally the worst. Hey, it works. No, don't stop. That was... That's what she said. No, that's extremely helpful. Thank you. Oh man, my lighting is horrible. Trust me when I say that this is much easier to see in person. How many lights do I have to turn off? Turn them all off. I'll show you guys. Literally. Oh, it's Tetris. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I think I might remove that speaker. That is not a... Okay, thank God it stops. Alright, this thing's actually really neat. I take back what I said about it being... whatever I said about it. I was looking at it thinking this is going to be a quick build and it probably wouldn't be worth it, but now that I realized it's Tetris, you'll have to forgive me, the description was kind of vague. It's Vix! Anyway, before I get totally distracted playing Tetris, as I am wont to do, let's finish the assembly. How about... Except I need more lights, because having only the lights at my desk is unpleasant. Got a little power button here. Those are squares I don't understand. Just gotta press it on. That's probably going to be a lot easier. So yeah, this was actually from Retro Game Repair Shop. For a while, I was the one finding solder practice kits going, oh, neat! And clicking order off of eBay and AliExpress. I'm sure it's on eBay or AliExpress, both probably. But this time around, I think he got to browsing a little bit too deeply and found a bunch of neat stuff. Like there's this, like I know I showed it in the beginning of the stream. I have this LED ball, but that one uses the, like the standard 2.5 millimeter, not 2.5 millimeter, I'm thinking headphone jacks, but these things, regular LEDs. Whereas the one I was looking at, it's a little bit more expensive and it looks tedious as hell to solder. But it uses RGB LEDs and it gives you a bunch of like brass wire or like unshielded copper wire, and you can like spool it up and around, and you make like an orb of RGB LEDs, and that thing looks super cool, but it's kind of on the pricey side. And I mean, it's certainly a solder practice kit. Like, if you can assemble that, then you can probably solder just about anything. Um, I think those things look super neat, but my concern is those LEDs are a pain in the butt to solder. They are very sensitive to heat. Excellent. We have skipped step 9, welding the battery box lead, because I'm going to do that after I figure out how this case goes together, because this thing has really long wires and I just want to trim it down. All right. Oh, where's my canoe? I need to see about getting me a fancy knife, don't I? Or at the very least, I should pretend to sharpen this thing instead of just using it for stupid junk like this. A dull knife is much more dangerous than a sharp knife. And not only is that a dull knife, but it's a very cheap knife and does not hold a blade very well, or hold an edge. When I bought it, I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm buying my first big boy knife. But it was like $15, so it's not really a big boy knife, is it? But whatever. I like it. I'm looking at them Benchmades, though, because one of my buds is making scales for them. And shoosh, do they look hot. I know he was experiencing technical difficulties, so I don't know if he's currently selling them. So I feel like kind of a dick giving him a shout out when he can't even sell them right now, but that sounds like a problem. Look at that beautiful clear acrylic. I can't wait to get my fingers all over it. Oh, see? That's why I wanted to wait. That makes it pretty darn self-explanatory. It's gonna get handled. Might as well do it now. I cannot get this paper off. Here we go. Alright, so I said at the beginning of this stream that I'm really bad at puzzles, but I think this puzzle is simple enough for me to figure out. I hope I'm not jinxing myself, but I'll try it out without looking at the instructions. Instructions are for nerds. There's 5 pieces. How difficult can it be? 6 pieces. Man, I can't believe I'm talking him up and he's not even here. That jerk. He's probably playing with his bud. But they're playing pirates right now. Yep, they're playing Sea of Thieves. That's great. It's such a good game, but only in small doses. All right. Let's see if this ape can figure this out. Oh god, that looks horrible. Who let me touch the inside? We want to do this in a particular order. So we probably want to thread the fasteners. This looks symmetrical, except for that hole. What is that hole supposed to be? What are any of these holes supposed to be? All right, fine, we're looking at the instructions. Why'd they do it that way? That's weird. We want to do this, it says. It seems counterintuitive, but I'm just going to go with it. Thanks for joining us, ground control. Especially thanks for helping me remember the English language. And I'm not being sarcastic, that's genuine. All right. Ah, I see now. Excellent. So just oh, look at that fit. That's great. And that goes like that, which means our wiring can be much shorter. Oh, I can cut the black one even shorter, can I? I mean, we should give it a little bit of slack. I do have to fold this up. Yeah, that's fine. But we'll cut the black one shorter. What gauge you think that is? I bet that's 28. Oh, my iron just went to sleep. Tin that up, tin that up. Tin both these up. Black to minus, red to positive. Oops. I'm straight not having a good time with that, am I? There. All right. Let's put the tape on. Oh, 3M, they spared no expense. How does that line up? That's not going to fit good pretty much no matter what we do because I didn't trim any of the pins. So I guess let's do that now. I mean, probably don't need it. It's pretty snug in the casing. Let's do it proper. Watch your eyes. I mean, not you, because, you know, stream. But me. Because these things will fly off. Ooh. What's vibrating? Is that my phone? I think it's my phone. If you hear vibrating through the stream, I'm sorry. I gotta check what that is. Just in case it's important. Oh my god, I have a lot of notifications. Nope, not important. Or at least nothing that can't wait. The hell? I've never seen that happen. All right. I hope there's a pin in there still. It doesn't look like it. There was not very much solder on that one. Yeah, it feels like there's a pin in there. It looked like I just clipped all of the solder off. All right, sure. I swear this doesn't usually happen to me. I'm gonna have fun cleaning these. Some of these I hear pinging off the ceiling and then hitting the floor in the next room. All right. With the old once over, excuse me. I don't know what the heck that was. Passes the old ocular pat down. Forgot a few pins though. Might as well do these. I don't know that we need to do these ones, but I'm here. I'm doing them. I'm gonna leave the rest though. Huh? There we go. I was skeptical at first, but I like how this case goes together because it gives you options. Like you can just leave the front empty if you want. Do I have a nut driver for this? Oh, it's just barely not big enough. I mean, it's kind of working anyway, but not the way it's supposed to. Oh, that's not my big one. I need the big nut driver. Yeah, buddy. I fix it. The rescue. Don't want too tight because that's acrylic. It'll crack. I think snug is more than good enough. Back an eighth of a turn. You know, this came up the other day in a conversation, and I'm not talking about anyone in particular, just something I was discussing with some friends, but a surprising amount of people don't quite understand how fasteners work, and it's frustrating because I don't know how to convey that information without sounding condescending. Like, I mean, even what I just said, you don't know how screws work. I mean, how simple are screws, right? That's not what I mean. I mean the principle behind it. Um, the screw is designed to fasten things together. But when you're using it in materials like acrylic or plastic, and you're using a metal screw with, a force multiplier that is a screwdriver, it is very easy to over tighten that. And unless you get a feel for how much force is appropriate, you'll never know that you're over tightening screws until you're dealing with cracked screw posts, and mostly just cracked screw posts. But you do something like that into aluminum, and you can break the screw off. I literally did that the other day. There's the thread that I fished out of the screw hole, and there's the head. Oop. I slip. But it's like people don't have a sense of torque. That's what I mean. I mean, obviously you understand how a screw works, but the materials, this is not the easiest thing to put together, is it? It wants to fall apart when I take my hands off it, and there's four pieces, and I have only 2 hands. Okay. I'm gonna send all 4 screws and hope for the best. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Hazi. The screw extractors that iFixit sells, like they give you almost like the idiot warning. Like, if you have need to use these, you probably weren't doing it right in the first place. And they're not being condescending, they're just being honest. If you find yourself regularly needing to extract screws that you installed, there's a problem with that. And the problem is not the screws. To bring things back to Game Boy, because I'm sure we share a lot of interests, and given that I primarily do Game Boy content, I'm sure most of you are here for that. Totally lost my train of thought. Never mind. It got away from me. Usually doesn't get away from me. I'm just gonna finger tighten these, because like I said, acrylic. It's kind of crooked. It's weird, but sure. I don't like how flush the buttons are, because it makes playing by touch kind of difficult, but you're also probably going to be playing in enough lighting to just see the buttons, so it's not really that big of an issue. I'm sorry, I saw a question. You talking about this? That Crystal GBA cart? It is from Retro Game Repair Shop. They made not they, but they stock cart shells that another vendor just started making. They come in a lot of colors, but obviously I like the crystal one. I'd go find a link, but I have a feeling that someone in my chat is already fishing one out. Fishing one up. And I genuinely appreciate you for that. Yeah, there it is. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, so it comes with 2 extra screws and nuts for those screws, but we don't need them. All right, I am going to clean up before I make this worse. I'm going to save these wires because of who I am as a person. Put that in the various lengths of assorted wire drawer. This is my drawer where I keep wires of various lengths. Most of them recycled because of who I am as a person. All right. And I'm gonna do a little sneaky trick I learned. This Scotch blue tape is, I'm not sponsored by them, I swear. I just really like this tape. But look at that cleanup, man. The rolls are more expensive than the generic masking tape, but it's worth it, trust me. I mean, unless you're using it for like actually masking things off, then I can't speak to that, but sheesh. If I was like working off the wood, I could just like swipe it off. But the silicone mat that I'm working on top of, I learned this lesson the hard way too. But for like those little component legs that I snipped off, if you try and sweep that, it's gonna stick down into the silicone and then like vault up into your finger. And trust me when I say that is an unpleasant experience. Is my light already dead? Oh my God, it is. So I'm fairly certain I charged both of these at the same time. This one is totally depleted. And this one, very bright, not at all depleted. I was wondering why my light seemed uneven. Oh my God, an excuse to upgrade my lights. All right. Get that cool USB cable. Turn that off for a minute. It's charged up. And then we'll be back in business. All right. I'm going to whip out this stupid thing that I bought because I have a problem. And I thought it was neat as hell. I don't really know what, like, I mean, obviously the use case is you plug it into an SP and it'll charge your SP on the go. And since SP support plane charge, bada bing, bada boom. But also it's just a battery holder because I don't go anywhere. And, so I don't really use it. Look out! It's the batteries that defeated the clean screen. Regular ones. These are matching batteries. Like, I know these don't look like Lada's, but they are. I just peeled the wrap off. Oh, do you get the same game every time? Alright, that's a little less cool. Let's find out. Maybe that was just a weird coincidence. I don't remember all the pieces, just the first few. Yeah. It's a static game. Oh, that's so much less cool. I mean, it's still really cool, and I guess if you want to master this specific game of Tetris, go for it, but... Oh, that's not even the right piece for that. Oh well, put it right here. I mean, it ain't no rosy retrospection, but it's pretty neat nonetheless. I wonder how high it goes. Like, can you get that up to 999, and then if you do, does it spill over? Or does the game just stop at some point? Like, it's pre-programmed. At some point, it's got to stop. And there's no way I have the patience to find out. I can play me some Tetris, but... not as much as I'd need to play. Oh, that's not the piece I wanted. Yeah, it is. Just kidding. Let's see if it'll give me a Tetris. That's not a Tetris. Kind of running out of places to put that, though. I'm gonna get a long one now, watch. Yep. Ah. Ah. 2. It's mocking me. Do we hold out? Let's hold out. That's gonna screw me over in a minute. Alright. Uh-oh. I made a poor decision. Oh, it wasn't that poor a decision, it appears. So this is what happens whenever I play Tetris. I try and get cheeky, and then I end up backing myself into a corner. Oh, we got lucky. Actually, no, we didn't, because it's pre-programmed. You can totally game this game if you want to. Alright, let's just send it. Never gonna get the piece I want when I want it. Well, screw it. Well, at this point, I think I'm pretty much done with the stream, and now I'm just playing with it. I've shaken it way more than 2 times. Getting ready to finish up here, so I guess this is the point where I'll just open it up to a free chat. If y'all have any questions, now's the time. Not that you can't normally ask me questions, but I've started getting enough comments on YouTube itself where I just set days aside to go through all the comments, so I don't really get to them as quickly as I'd like to, but it is what it is. Uh-oh. Almost game over. Let me turn it. I should have never tried to go for that Tetris. Yeah, I think we're out of space. If I get a long one, I won't be able to turn it. Alright, let's see what happens when the game's over. I will go get some props. Be right back. 37? Oh, I wonder if it saves high scores. Probably not after you power it off. I'll be right back. All right. First thing RGRS says, and he's bullying me. Oof. All right, let's kill that for now. I am going to set this aside because I am genuinely going to play this because Tetris is my weakness. I have many Tetris carts for Game Boy, and I always put them away because if I leave them out, I will play them. Oop. Tetris is the only game that I can just pick up anytime and have a hard time putting it down. Okay. So, do you know if the Funny Playing Game Boy Color screen kit can handle a 5-volt input voltage? I don't know that. That is a question you'd have to ask Funny Playing. I'm gonna say probably, but don't quote me on that. Definitely run it by them first. If you're talking about the screen itself, like the power wire, it's designed to take battery voltage, which on a Game Boy Color is nominally 3 volts. But I know that they have a lithium-ion battery mod, which will push that voltage up to a maximum of 4.2. So if I were funny playing and I knew I was making a lithium-ion battery mod, I would use a regulator that can support that voltage. And since most regulators support a relatively wide range, they probably support 5 volts, but don't quote me on that. Seriously, that's something you should ask them before you bring something out. So, I have on my desk. Oh my god, I lost it. No, I didn't. It's right here. People have been asking, and I think it might be fun to show them off. So, let me try and move that cable so I don't do that again. I have every assembled Slate that I own. There are many like them. These ones are mine. But let us start with this one. Yu Lanzi. Why would you say something like that? Alright. Oh, real quick tangent. This is what one of those crystal carts looks like without the PCB in it, because I didn't realize that I have another one on my desk. Alright. This Slate. Quick history lesson. I designed the Slate literally because I wanted one. It took traction. I was showing it off in the beginning. It was I wanted this. I'm gonna make it, so I did. And then one thing led to another, and I wanted to get. We had them manufactured, and it's now a product that Retro Game Repair Shop sells, and I'm extremely proud of how it came out. But there was a very large gap between the one that I made because I wanted and then the one that I felt comfortable selling. Now, you probably look at these and go, yeah, those are pretty much the same thing, aside from the obvious difference of the screen lens. But if you look closer, you'll notice a few more things like the button wells. And if we actually hold these side by side, you might be able to tell that the original one I made is a little bit thinner. It's like this is probably my favorite Slate, only because of the history. This one has a lot of sentimental value, and of course works perfectly fine. I actually played this one. It sounds like I've gone underwater. I can't do anything about that. I can end the stream. Oh my god. Oh. Okay, no, good. We're on Wi-Fi. Let's... Do I still sound like a robot? Is it better? Cool. We're using mobile data now instead of Wi-Fi, because... whatever. I should have enough. Anyway, I made this, genuinely used it. This paintware is the result of an accident. I did something that ended up dissolving the paint and turning it into a sticky gooey mess, and this is the result of me cleaning off all the sticky gooey mess. But otherwise, I was very pleased with how this turned out, except there were enough little things that I wasn't comfortable slapping my name on it and selling it as is. For starters, I really like how these button wells look, but if you play your console with the pad of your thumb, they just really don't feel good. If you play with the tip of your thumb, like I generally do, good lord, if you play with the tip of your thumb like I generally do, it's perfectly fine, so it didn't even occur to me as an issue. But it is. So we ended up making the button wells a little bit more forgiving, and this feels a lot better. Bunch of little things like fit and finish. Like this one just doesn't have that. There's this huge panel gap going down the entire side and bottom of this thing. and out the other side. That is... There's really not a whole lot we can do about that. That was just me not making the sides big enough. And so I ended up making the sides a little bit bigger, which unfortunately increased the overall girth of the thing. But we didn't start here. It was a very long journey just to get to this thing. So let me take you back in time. I got a box of slates.
Sheesh.
So I ended up getting rid of pretty much all of the 3D printed prototypes that I had done because I figured they didn't really hold anything special. They were really shitty prints to begin with, and most of them didn't work. And the ones that did, you know, like I said, it was a crappy print, so not missing out. But there is... This model came right after this one and before this one. So this is a crossover. This is what I call the V1 slate. This was the V2, and this is the V3. This one was this model, but with all the changes I wanted to put into this model, aside from lamination. That was a very last minute change. But the problem was, at some point, I didn't quite realize what I was doing, and my model turned into a very messy parametric nightmare, and it ended up being that the start and select buttons pretty much didn't work at all, and I sacrificed this one for the greater good and started cutting things off of it. But you know, you can see the resemblance. If you look close enough, they are different models. Like, you can see the start and select wells are totally different. If you look at it from a side profile, the angle is not nearly as severe. I don't know. I thought we'd bring it down as much as we possibly can at the bottom because I wanted to steal something from Apple's playbook. And I don't remember if this was Apple specifically or a third party doing this, but one of the things when the original MacBook Air launched was they were showing how thin it was, but only on one side of it. And the MacBook Air, the original one, is wedge shaped. And I don't know, that resonated with me. And like, yeah, it's still thick if you measure at the thickest part, but having an angle, you know, like a gradual slope up really helps things. And so I made it more aggressive. And I think it worked. But here is the ultimate history lesson. This is the first iteration that we actually made. And I don't want to talk about the speaker grill. I know, trust me. It looked better in the model, and then we made it, and then I realized how freaking bad it looked. And that was literally anything anyone said when they looked at this model. It wasn't great. But aside from the speaker grill, it was totally usable. But I think I can actually assemble this one. Like, I don't think there's any problems putting this together, except that we never had back plates made, so it will just be a gap unless one of these old ones fits. I can probably modify it. I'd have to cut that out because I started making a gap. Okay. That's fine. That's whatever. So, we had this one made. It was a promising first step, but the button wells were just too deep, especially for start and select. Start and select felt horrible. Like, they were clicky and fine and everything, but they were so recessed. Like, you needed custom buttons really to enjoy this iteration of the model, and I didn't want to do custom buttons. I wanted original buttons. I figured there's got to be a way to do it. We'll make it work. I don't want to have buttons made. I don't want to have everything made custom for this thing, even though in the end we had basically everything made custom except for the buttons. I got my one thing, all right? So we iterated the model, and then quite a few iterations later we ended up here. And I was happy with it for like a me thing. But then got to talking with RGRS, and he's like, hey, we should sell that. And a year and a half went by, iterating, me trying to teach myself CAD, trying to learn all the fancy tools that I need, blah, 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 so on and so forth. We have, this is a V2.5. This is the new model, but without a laminated screen. You can see I was experimenting with some brackets. Ultimately, we ended up dropping these things. Thank God, because 3D printed brackets that are just like kind of press fit was kind of a nightmare, and I didn't want to have to tell people to glue these things in. This original model, there's just no brackets. You just kind of leave it hanging and it works. Funny you guys are talking about powder coating, because in my box of slates, I have not one, not two. Never mind, it's just two. I have 2 powder-coated slates. It is, it works, but it's like a snap fit. These ones have been broken in, but oh, that one has a screw in it. Never mind. I don't know. I think we ended up not going with that because, yeah, it was hard to get the tolerances consistent, but it's doable. It's a thing. I might build some of these someday and like do a giveaway. If anyone wants V1 slates that the fit and finish is a little wonky on, but totally playable. And I'm just showing off the various prototypes. We made a lot of these things prototyping it. Retro CNC was phenomenal, like instrumental in getting this thing built, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing at the beginning, and arguably I still don't know what the hell I'm doing, but you know, we sort of kind of got there in the end. That doesn't belong. Ooh, this one. Ooh, whoops doodle. I really like how that one came out. This one is Cerakoted. This one is also Cerakoted. And this one is also Cerakoted. Oh, this one has a screen in it. I wonder if it works. Oh, that. Okay, we'll circle back to that. Oh, I did keep one of the 3D prints. This is the one I ordered. It's kind of a pain in the butt to prototype with 3D prints because they're just too darn flexible. Here is the other V1. Ooh, I do have a working backplate for these. Okay, so I can build the red one with this purple backplate, and that'll work. This is the other V1 we made. On the outside, it looks a little bit better, but unfortunately I had already made some tweaks. Like this red one came first, and then we did the black one. I made some tweaks to try and get the button feel a little bit better, and it didn't work out at all. And this one actually can't be assembled. I mean, you can fake it, just glue buttons in and pretend, but I don't know. I kept it because of course I did. I've also got on my desk this hunk of aluminum that was going to be a slate, but Retro CNC was like, I don't know, 10% into machining it, and then I'm like, oh hey, by the way, I totally changed the front angle on these, and he mailed me this out of spite, and I keep it as a reminder to be better, but I don't know. Is this the most interesting slate I have? You tell me. We tried experimenting with acrylic, but most of them would just crack with handling or shipping. I wanted it to work, but it just wasn't happening. with a lot more V1s because this is the model we were planning on going with until I said, hey, we can do it better. And then we did. Another acrylic, this one polished. This one's totally assemblable. I should do a build with this one at some point. Oh, I probably already did, given that the screw holes are all tapped. Or maybe I just tapped it. I don't know. But either way, the back plates never worked in acrylic. It's just too thin. The material's too brittle. I don't know. In the end, we got there, but there were a lot of steps along the way. A lot of different backplate designs. I don't think I have one of the original backplates, do I? No. This is an inside joke that, unfortunately, it turned into more of a joke on me, but it is what it is. I like how this one turned out, though. I don't know if this works with the current model. I don't think it does. I think I changed too much. Oh, wait. Oh, I didn't think that would work. I guess I didn't change enough. Like, I mean, you heard that snap in. It's pretty tight. I tweak the tolerances, so you don't have to do that with the retail ones, except for the brass ones. But yeah, on the retail ones, we ended up going with laminated, and I was able to do away with the brackets and just build them into the shell. It worked out. I am definitely going to have to build that now. Alright, what else we got in this wonderful box of mysteries? Got a lens I was prototyping with. I know you hear me shuffling, but most of these are just different colors of the original. So yeah, it was a long road, but we got there in the end, I think. Originally started with what is this? Oh, there's that matching blue back plate. I'm sure if Retro CNC ever looks at this stream, he'll realize he needs to send me an invoice for these things. Well, I think that's all I got in my bag of mysteries. Ooh, I'm not even paying attention to chat, I'm sorry. I just like talking about slates. What do you mean your brass slate doesn't fit? So, okay, I was just talking about that. The brass slates, because of the coating on them, the tolerances are a little bit tight, and so the back plate is going to do this when you try and install it. It's just a snap fit, just like that. And yeah, I really wanted to get these transparent ones working, but the model I made cannot be plastic injection molded. It does not work. The model would have to have significant modifications made to it, and I don't know what I'm doing for that. For machining, I had a professional that I could consult the whole process along the way, and you know, he was just happy to be making cool shit. And what is this? I don't know what material this is. Let's find out. Try scratching it. Alright, I think that's powder coated. But yeah, so we had some powder coated ones made. It works. It's just, we have to do that at a separate facility. It's an added cost, and it's just not something we explored. We figured if people wanted to get theirs powder coated, there's nothing stopping you from sending yours off to get it powder coated. Except that the tolerances might be a little bit tight in some areas. I'd recommend masking off the screen area and the inside back plate and the screw holes, obviously. But otherwise, I think there should be enough tolerance everywhere to cover a powder coat. I've got this green one I really want to assemble, and some custom lenses I commissioned. Shout out to B23N, made these for me, and then I never even used them because I was too scared to commit to a build. So I got custom gold leaf lenses, and I thought that would look sick on a green slate. Yeah, picking up what I'm putting down. Unfortunately, this green didn't really turn out the way I wanted. I was hoping for this green, but this one is a custom made by Retro CNC, and then this is the retail one. It's not the green I wanted. It's not a bad green, it's just not the green I wanted. But I don't know, that was selfish, so I didn't really care because it's still a good color. But I've also got a Game Boy Color one, 2 Game Boy Color ones. I have a green Game Boy Color, and then I ended up taking it apart to salvage the screen out of it, and then I never had a screen to put it back together with, so I don't know, I'll get to it eventually. Now that the slates are done, I suppose I have time to revisit that now. And 2 more. So I've got this one. I think Retrovice was trying to do a giveaway on this one, and there was a little bit of a misunderstanding about this specific slate, and I feel really bad about vetoing his slate, but we worked something out. He's doing a better giveaway now. But I didn't want to give away the very last prototype that Retro CNC made, especially because this was a rather quick prototype that we were just using for fit checking, and so some of the operations were a little bit cowboy, and there's some panel gaps here and there, but also one of the screw posts broke on this thing, and I just didn't want someone to get their hands on a slate and have this be their experience. It looks good. Retrovice did a phenomenal job, but in the hand, it doesn't feel as good as one of the retail ones. So I'm sorry, I'm not talking shit, Gib. Please don't take offense. This was made for a different purpose, and it served that purpose very well, and then it was repurposed, and that wasn't communicated to Retrovice, and that's my fault. But he did a phenomenal job with this, and anyway, I feel bad about it, so I want to put it away. This is the only retail version of a non-laminated slate. We made 2. One of them has no screw posts. This is the other. I don't know where that first one went. I think Retrovice has it. I think it's the one he engraved. It does have screw posts. They're just helicoiled, so they're a little bit delicate. But this is the single most expensive slate that was ever made because we paid for one. And I don't know if you guys know this, but CNC machining is, there's a tooling cost with that. And you pay tooling costs once, no matter how many you make. Well, not no matter how many you make. It does scale at that point. But needless to say, this was very expensive, and so it also holds a special place in my heart. I should replace these buttons at some point because I'm not sure I'm feeling the gold anymore, but serves its purpose. All right, moving on. I'm kind of skipping all over the place because of who I am as a person, but I see a question and I want to cover it. So there's brass. There were two options. I made a video talking about the finishes, and then based off the response to that, we ended up just getting both made. And so RGRS should have reached out and asked, hey, we only listed one brass model. Did you want the raw one or the blasted one? The correct answer is the raw one, but for full disclosure, both of these are lacquer coated, which does mess with the tolerances a little bit, and it does make them a little bit more nerve-wracking, I guess, if you're not familiar with the fact that it basically turned into a snap fit. But aside from that, you know, once it's together, it's totally fine. It's just a little tight, but it does go together, and it's a snap fit. Like I did the video on this thing, and I was trying to show how the bottom snaps on, and I think because I chose a very poor quality shell for that example, that it didn't actually snap in the video. But for the brass ones, because of the lacquer coating, the back plate snaps on and the bottom snaps on as well. But once it's on, you know, it fits great, and it works with OEM, no problem, and it works with aftermarket, also no problem. But anyway, circling back, because I want to talk about the elephant in the room. That is, oh, two more. I had three more. I have some special editions that... Mr. Julian, I don't know what happened, but that's not something I can help with. I don't handle any of the logistics for Retro Game Repair Shop. Submit a ticket. I'm sorry that happened to you, but I can't do anything about that. I don't have access to any customer information. I'm basically just a consultant with the Slate. But we had some special ones made, obviously, before we switched to laminated design. I'm terribly afraid to build these because, like the acrylic ones, they are not the strongest material, but sheesh, do they look good. Basically just have them on display, but it was an experiment, didn't work out, but yeah, it's like I said, on the website itself, there's only one listing, because going forward, the raw is the only one that is going to be sold. We're having more slates made, and we're going to try and experiment with a few different materials. But for brass, going forward, if you order one, it's going to be one of the raw ones. There was an option if you pre-ordered to have one of the bead blasted ones, but that's only if you pre-ordered, and contact RGRS. There's not anything I can do about that. And yeah, we had just regular wood and then wood and resin, suspended wood. Oh, there's a term for it. I don't know, but yeah, man, these things came out so good. But wood screw posts don't do so well. This one, oh yeah, and this one just straight up, the resin didn't bond very well at the edge of the wood, and it got kind of chewed up when it was milled out. But yeah, show them off because they're pretty cool. I could glue it together, but what I'm gonna do is now that the slate is done, I was planning on getting like a shadow box made and having like one of each iteration in there, and then I was gonna have some of the special editions at the bottom, like the wood ones or the acrylic ones, and one more that I wanted to wait till last to show off because it's I mean, we can't do metal inserts with the wood ones. That's just not feasible. With the design, how it works, it would have to go through from the front, and then you'd get screw holes in the front. And while that's fine, that's not what I wanted to go for with these. So this way, and then we have one more. It looks a little bit weird on the inside, but it works. I left a screen in it because this one has a very special screen. This was the first laminated one before we even decided to make laminated. This was basically a ship post, and we made this. This came well before this one. It came basically right after this. But, I mean, it works. I can probably slap it together. Get a preview. We did not go with this because I think the aesthetic is not great. So for starters, you have these horrifyingly sharp corners that just don't match with the rest of the aesthetic at all. But also this screen is wildly off-center. Let me get... I think that has a battery in it. Nope, no battery. Ooh, that one has a battery in it. And a game even. I'm fairly certain this kit works. I made a mistake, didn't I? Oop. Ah. Is it on? It is on. So that backlight kit doesn't work, but the screen should work. And if not, it's not really something special. I can always replace it. That's unfortunate. I knew there was a reason this backlight kit was sitting on my desk. I have another one, but I'm not going to dig through it. You'll have to take my word for it. If you can see the bezels in the reflection, try and get the light, you can see that left one pretty thick, and then that right one is pretty thin. And like half the reason I made the Slate with the custom screen assembly was I wanted the screen centered. So it was a fun experiment, but it didn't really work out. This was supposed to be black. It ended up turning gray, but I think it turned out like the color on this thing was phenomenal, but we weren't able to reproduce it, unfortunately. But plug that. But I've seen someone else out there making a Game Boy Advance SP shell design, and they got on my bad side, especially when they openly mocked my design and then made their own, calling it a version of my design but lazy. And this looks like an OpenSP ripoff. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. This came well before the OpenSP. We even showed this off in a limited capacity. So if anyone wants to say I'm copying him, no, that's not true. I did it first. He probably didn't see mine, so he's probably not copying me, but there it is. I don't like talking about this one because it's a little bit of a redheaded stepchild where it came out way too well for what it is, but it does work. And I don't have a matching backplate for it, unfortunately. I mean, like, I have one I can install, just not the same color. Red, though. No, we can't, because this is for a different model. And I never labeled this stuff. So, at some point when I redid the Slate design, I moved the screw posts out a little bit. I totally threw out the original model and just started from scratch. But I moved the screw posts out a little bit just so I wouldn't try and fit the old back plates in and go, why the heck isn't this fitting? Blah, blah, blah. I just moved the screw post so that wouldn't be a problem, because all of the tolerances and all of the alignment on everything else was different, even though they ended up being the same width. But that was a SP constraint, not a Slate thing. So anyway, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed that little tangent. I like talking about this. I think history is neat, and if I don't talk about it, literally no one will ever know, because I am the only one with this knowledge. And this giant box of slates that I keep in my freezer. And so because of that, I've got 6 fully assembled, totally working slates because of who I am as a person. Mostly working. I think this one, yeah. This one has a USB-C mod that I can't actually utilize because it's not the centered one. So to charge batteries, I have a custom USB-C cable. I don't use this one because I need this cable to work with my keyboard, so I can't charge my keyboard and use my cable at the same time, but it does totally work if you can get a low profile USB-C cable. But that's not a thing that anyone sells as far as I can tell. Oops. But ta-da, they do work. Which one is my favorite? Oh, for context, I have literally 2 of the exact same cables. One of them is the original that I cut the sheathing off, and the original doesn't work because it is just barely at too much of an angle. But if I were to shave that down, it would work. But anyway, which one is my favorite? My favorite is tied between this original one. Like, I can't answer that, dude. It's like asking me to choose which one is my favorite child. I was literally about to sit here and say, it's tied between this one and this one, and this one, and this one, and then these 2. And like, yeah, these 6, I don't think I'm ever going to take these 6 apart except for maybe to modify them. This one, I got to swap the board out eventually to get a different one in there. This specific USB-C mod is the headphone jack one, and oh my god, I think my headphone dongle will fit in that. Do I know where my dongle is? Of course I can't find my dongle. Why would I be able to find my dongle? Who keeps track of their dongle? Alright, I fully expected it to be there, but it's not. I don't know where it is. Nah, if I had to choose one, I could never have another Slate again. Literally just the one. I think this one. Like, it's just that sentimental to me. Sentimentality aside, I really like the brass one. Like, the weight is just very satisfying. I walked around. These things are stupid heavy. Like, people, I don't think a lot of people realize how heavy brass is. Hopefully you can see that. All right. So the original is 154 grams. The brass, I'm going to set that down gently, is almost twice the weight at 277 grams. And for context, here is a perfectly stock AGS 101. 158 grams. 156, excuse me. What was that again? 155. Yeah, so this is the same weight as original SP, but the center of gravity is a lot lower because the screen is like halfway down compared to an original SP where the screen would be like hanging off. So because of the center of gravity, it feels a lot lighter. The actual retail one is a little bit heavier because the laminated screen assembly does add some weight at 168 grams. I don't think I've ever compared these two specifically. Yeah, the laminated ones are a lot heavier. I didn't realize the lamination added that much weight. 10 grams. Who'd have thunk? There is a little bit of a materials difference. Like this one has plastic brackets, whereas this one has metal brackets that are built into the shell. But aluminum's pretty light.
Sheesh.
Yes, Sid Shakal, this is a live stream. How you doing, bud? I'd love one with pearlage across the outside. What do you mean, Landon? I don't know if that's an actual term that I'm just unfamiliar with, or if you're talking about like a pearl finish, like this. Yeah, I do, Sid, I do a lot of premieres, which is basically a live stream, except it uses a pre-recorded video, but it's set up the same. It uses the exact same system. You have the live chat and everything. But this is actually live. I'm here. Hello. It's funny, I can blow on the scale and trigger it. So all my waving around is... Huh. I didn't expect that to be lighter. Pearlage is a finish that's commonly found on watch movements. So, kind of like that? You mean? Like that's what I think of when I think of watch movements. I could also just pull my watch apart. It's probably loose enough to do by hand. Nope, it's not. I don't have the tool for it. I knocked it loose one time with a screwdriver, and then I think I hand tightened it, but yeah. Need the tool unless I want to mar up the casing. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about now, yeah. That'd be pretty sick. Yeah, it probably doesn't, to be honest. I don't know. I've taken this thing apart before, and I have a video of the footage somewhere because I thought it would be pretty neat to film in slow motion, and it kind of was, but that turned out weird. Yeah, I'd be into that. There's another pattern. I don't know what it's called, but we were talking about it. And it seems like it could be neat to do, but it's basically like a bunch of overlapping semicircles in the finish. I think that could be pretty neat in something like brass, where you really see the tool pathing and. That's pearly. Okay, so we are talking about the same thing then. Yeah, RGRS. I think he did it on a knife scale. Fish scales. There you go. Yeah, we are talking about the same thing. Okay, so I just didn't know that term. Thank you. I learned something new. Someone's sending me messages and I can't reply because I had to unplug my keyboard to show that low profile USB cables work for that, and I don't know where the cable went because of who I am as a person. I set it down and it wasn't in the right place, and I totally blanked it out of my mind. It's freaking stupid. Like, some of these older keyboards, they're designed for mini USB,
but they come with micro or USB-C anyway. But the port is so recessed that you can't plug in a normal cable. So that's why I made that custom cable in the first place. Oh, I can't find it because it's still plugged in. Excellent. So yeah, if you want to make a custom cable, there's no reason you can't use a USB-C mod on these things. There is a version of this mod that centers the port a little bit more. It's extremely tedious to assemble. I have not done a video on it, but it is linked in my wiki that I maintain. If you go into my description of the video, there will be a link to the site that I just set up, which is really just a Google domain that I have redirecting to a GitHub page. So don't mind the non-HTTPS if you're the type that pays attention to that. But in there is all of the handy dandy links that I usually put in video descriptions because that was getting a little bit long in the tooth there. But in there is a link to the wiki, and then if you scroll through that to the SP mods page, there's lots of stuff. But one of them is the centered USB-C ports. Unfortunately, like I said, they're pretty tedious to assemble, and I haven't done it yet. At least not a video. But there is... Stay tuned. That's all I can say. We're working on it. I want USB-C in it. Realistically, I keep one of these at my desk. And I can charge pretty much everything but a Game Boy Micro, and I'm thinking about cutting the PSP connector off and splicing in a micro connector so I can charge literally everything that I care about, because who cares about PSPs? But on the SP side of things, like, this plug just fits right in. There's no problem. There's no clearance issues. The original plug is a little bit more low pro. It's funny how much lower profile this is than this. And like, this is a standard. If you look at any USB-C cable, you're gonna find the same thing. They're all this stupid high profile thick nonsense. Like, even this cable, it's one of the lowest profile cables that I can find stock. Doesn't fit. I don't have that wrong. Like, it just barely doesn't fit. If I shove that in, it'll probably... Ooh, that's a little sketchy. Never mind. I'm not going to try it. I totally understand that ADHD stuff. Mike just linked it, but also if you go through my description, there's a link to my site, which has a link to the wiki. Yeah. We also wanted to do these custom emblems, but I wasn't happy with how they turned out, so we didn't. Unfortunately, they just don't stay adhered down unless you customize it, and that wasn't something we wanted to do by hand. I mean, obviously it's fine for a one-off, but... Yeah, here we go. I put Mako on my favorite one, because I'm Mako. Come on. Right. Come on. Focus. Focus, you fuck. Ta-da. But you can see precisely the problem is that they peel. I gotta fix this one. I haven't fixed it yet because I was debating on whether or not I should repaint it. It's this really, really nice, like, pearl blue, really deep dark color. It turned out really well until I ruined it. But that's my fault for putting on it what I put on it and for not using the proper primer. Yeah, E-Day's version. IDE. I don't know if it's E-Day or IDE. But that's the one. That one works fine. It's just tedious to assemble. Oh, I don't even think this one charges. That would have sucked to give away. Oops. I mean, it just had to look good. It didn't have to actually work. And no one asked, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. These things, the GameCube Link connectors, don't work. I'm sorry. I wanted them to, but I knew this pretty much day one going into the project. Once I had an actual physical model in my hand, that this wasn't going to work, and I just accepted it because I don't care about GameCube Link. Unfortunately, the wireless adapter is the same story. If you pull this out of the casing and just like raw dog it, it'll work, but it seemed like such a non-issue. I personally don't care because this thing is compatible with like 3 Pokemon games and then a few Famicom mini games, and that's it. And then the GameCube cable, I figured, well, GameCube sucks, so who cares? But like regular link cables and such work totally fine as long as you insert it the right way. Ta-da. Surface, yeah. That blue one, this is painted, as you can see by the paint rubbing off here. The rest of these are anodized, all the bright colored ones. This one is just polished aluminum. Actually, this was sandblasted and then polished. And you can still see the grain from the sandblasting in there, and I think it turned out really, really well. I kind of want to make another one. And by make another one, I mean apparition into existence another one, because I didn't make this one in the first place. Jehu did a phenomenal job on this. Oh my god, I just said his name wrong on stream. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I was told the pronunciation and I forgot. I'm gonna not make a big deal out of it. We're just gonna move on and pretend that didn't happen. Here's another thing I have on my desk, just for funsies. I made one with a clear lens. Unfortunately, that lens cracked. If you can see that. No, because the way the light hits it. But I don't know. Thought it was neat. I wanted to build this one, but then the lens cracked, and I just kind of lost motivation. That's fully laminated, by the way. So, like, the screen works, but the lens is cracked. Hey, who? Thank you. And, like, I can't do anything about the cracked lens because it's laminated to the screen. If I try and take it off, I'm going to break I'm going to break the screen even worse, or the lens even worse, or I'm going to break the screen, or both. So, I don't really know what to do with that one. Just leave it around for testing and try not to forget about it. Yeah, so the paint on this was totally fine. One thing, I'm talking a lot of shit today, and I personally don't mean it, but when it comes to rattle can spray paint, they give you 2 timers on the can. Like, read the can, the instructions are actually spot on almost every single time. The manufacturer knows how to paint better than most people do. They give you the time to handle, and then they give you the time till it dries. But what they don't give you is the time until it cures. I almost always, whenever I paint something that I know I'm going to handle, I give it a week before I touch it. So I'll get all my layers of paint on there, and then I'll just let it sit for a week. And every single time I've done that, it's been perfectly fine to handle. The few times I haven't done that, like, the paint is still kind of soft and sometimes a little bit sticky. And if you handle it, like, you'll get your fingerprints in there, and then the paint will cure, and then your fingerprint is just embedded in the paint. There's no way to get it out because that's the shape the paint took. Are you talking about this RGRS? Are you talking about this slate or this screen? Because both were for R&D, but this slate itself is one of the retail ones. And like this screen isn't glued in or anything. It's just, I keep it there because it's cracked and I don't want to handle it.
actually. You can see that crack a little bit better if I do pull it out. Right there. And it spidered all the way up through the whole screen. And then I started lifting the corners because I accidentally glued this thing into the mold. And that's why it cracked in the first place. The mold, the jig, the laminating jig I made. Anyway, I think that's all I've got. If you ordered a Slate, I sincerely hope you enjoy it. This was a project of nothing but passion, and I put a lot of work into it, and I think it shows. And if you end up getting one, I really hope you enjoy it. I saw that Jake put up a video review of it today. I haven't really had time to watch it. I've been at work all day until I got home, and then I just kind of chilled on the couch with my cat for a little while. Suppose I could have watched it then, but I didn't. I heard his opinion on it through a third party, and it's kind of what I expected, but I just want to reiterate this. If you don't like this console, you're not going to like this one. If you like this console, you'll love this. That's my opinion on it. He's not a SP guy, and I totally get it. Like, not everyone is. I think the original Game Boy was a DMG thing. I think these aren't even worth their weight in lead. But I know people like them, and I'm sure they're fine. Have you had any issues with the metal buttons causing switches to fail? Not a one, Landon. I have heard people complaining that the metal buttons cause divots in their SPs, but I would like to point out, yeah, it is all of these. None of these boards have had metal buttons in them ever. They already have divots. Like, that's what happens with use, with the membranes, with the metal buttons, anything. It's not gonna, like, yeah, this has a bunch of mileage on it, and it's never had metal buttons. This one has metal buttons, and it was handled at a convention quite vigorously. You want me to pull it apart? We can take a look at it. I gotta pull it apart anyway. Before I do that, though...
Where is it? I lost it.
My ADHD is acting up again. I set it down. It was right here at the beginning of the stream. Alright, whatever. We'll use this instead. Is it in my recents? Of course not. Is it that? Is that really what I named it? It is. All my buttons, totally working. Not a single problem. Let's pull it apart. We can look at some of the crimes I may or may not have committed on the inside of this one, because I genuinely don't remember. But it has a screen that I had to modify to fit, and that's why they got delayed. The first batch of screens didn't fit.
Let's put this to bed once and for all. So I accidentally super glued the top of this thing and it doesn't really spin well. Which makes it kind of awkward to use. I'm meaning to replace it. Alright, so remember how I said brass ones? This was earlier in the stream. They're a little bit tight, a little bit tight. Removing them is as easy as going in on the left side and then just levering that up. It comes out, it'll go in, they're just tight. And if we take a look at this, you can see there are divots in the buttons, yes, because the buttons have always had divots in them. But those certainly don't look damaged to me. So this specific part that is glued is not metal. There is a plastic bushing in there. And I glued the plastic bushing to the metal, and acetone will dissolve the bushing, so there's really nothing I can do about it except replace it. I have another one. These come with extreme rate kits. They aren't the best screwdrivers. They're really, really cheap. And they don't fit a lot of things, but they do fit the Slate screws very well, so I've been keeping it on my desk for that. But anyway, there you go. I hope... Oh, yeah. There are two iterations of the buttons that I have seen. There are these like brownish ones, that's what HDR is talking about, and then these, like, they have the black base and then like a tinted dome or a tinted film over the dome, I'm not sure. And then there's the ones with the white base and the silver dome. These ones show wear very easily. Obviously this one shows almost no wear on the D-pad, but I don't think it was very heavily used, and based off the damage, I don't think that's ever going to change. But this is one of my parts boards, so. Those domes are a little bit more common on AGS 101 models. Here's another one. This one doesn't... Oh, this one does have the marks. It's just harder to see. They're not as pronounced. Oh, that's glue. Okay. I committed some crimes when I tried fixing this. I tried gluing this switch. My wire came off. I gotta fix that. I tried gluing this switch in because literally all of the pads are gone and glue didn't work. I don't really know what else to do about it, but when it's in the shell, like the shell holds it in place, so it's not really a problem. So yeah, if you heard somewhere that these buttons will cause damage, oh, of course I soldered it in. Why wouldn't I solder in a USB-C modded to the Slate? I mean, like the wires and junk. Yeah, I don't know if you heard somewhere that these buttons are damaging the domes. I have never seen a single dome get damaged by these buttons. Let's try not cross-threading that. How about? There we go. And there was a guy going around for a long time trying to defame Retro CNC because he put his Game Boy together with some of the Retro CNC's buttons, and about an hour later decided he hated them, took his SP apart, and then was looking for problems and found that his buttons had little divots in them. But like that's a stock SP thing. They all have little divots in them if it's ever been used.
Do I have it on my desk?
No, but it's fine because I have this membranes.
Like the divots are just straight up caused by the dot in the membrane over time. It is what it is. It's literally just a divot. On the SP itself, this button consists of I'm not gonna, let's tear up this one because this one already has messed up buttons. Peel this off. This is part of the button. So the button itself consists of 3 parts. You have the base with the contacts in it. Then you have these 2 parts which are joined into one. And I can try and peel this up and show you. It's literally just a plastic sticky film that holds the clicky dome onto the base. You can peel this up on just about any SP, and to fix it, all you have to do is stick it back down. And now, if it were actually sticky, it wouldn't be a problem. But in this case, like, this thing is so messed up, I'd be surprised if this specific tack switch ever worked again. But, like, one of them, I don't know, they tried prying it up or something? I don't know. This was part of a lot of SPs that I bought. And surprisingly, everything on it works. But, like, yeah, it's... Oh, and this center divot, that was my favorite. This is a perfect example. This thing has never seen metal buttons, and what's that? A little wear mark in the center of the D-pad. There was a fundamental misunderstanding, and he was trying to libel Retro CNC for it, and it was a whole big thing, and it still pisses me off, and it still pisses Retro CNC off, and apparently, judging by the response in chat, it still pisses Retro Game Repair Shop off too. And I totally get it. It was a really stupid thing, and it got made worse because someone who normally does not participate in that platform decided, hey, let's make this a big deal. Let's make a big thread and pin it on Reddit. Let's discuss this problem. Without actually realizing that it wasn't actually a problem. So when you Google it, now it shows up on the top of Google because now there's a Reddit thread and Reddit has high SEO. So they're totally fine. It's like, at worst, they're a little bit rattly. That's it. But it's metal, you know? What do you expect? It's metal on metal. Or even metal on plastic. This one has Boreas in it. Like, that's how they work. If you were expecting something different, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. But that's how metal works. Alright, and I'm gonna put this thing back together. I need to put a new bottom on this. Ooh, that's not seated properly, is it? Now it is. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I'm sorry, you kind of triggered me a little bit. It's not your fault. But it's a recurring issue that we're still trying to clean up because one guy just really didn't like his buttons. They were actually discontinued for a while because of that specific incident. So congratulations, you know who you are. I don't, because I never actually knew anything other than your handle, but... Oh. See, now I'm so frustrated I can't even put my slate back together. Set it down first. There we go. I'm not letting that drop into place, so it's probably fine. I don't know. There are some members of the community that have a way with words that, like, they think they have a reasonable opinion, and then they're talking about, well, this is too expensive, so I hope you get cloned so we can get it cheaper from AliExpress. Like, why would you say something like that? Why would you think that's an okay thing to say? Come here. Hurry. Oh, my light fell. I turned in my chair, it pulled the cable, and then the light fell. My cat knows I'm angry and he's yelling at me. I wasn't even keeping track. Did I tighten all of these? Not really. No, Travis, this is not a boxy pixel. This is a Slate. This is my own custom design that I worked extremely hard on.
So look, now my other light is almost dead. The other one's been plugged in this whole time. Is it done charging? No.
I worked extremely hard on this thing, and as soon as I started showing it off, Boxy Pixel decided, oh, hey, I can do that. And then made this thing that I have mixed feelings on. But they are wildly different mods, wildly different niches. You judge for yourself. Obviously, I'm biased because I made the Game Boy that I wanted. Obviously, I'm going to say the Slate's better. But, you know, if you're happy with these kind of loose, disgusting tolerances around... Really, like, that's the battery cover it comes with. And the battery, using the battery he sells. And you can see it's bulging out. I hate it. And it's not because the battery's bulging, it's just because he sells a battery that doesn't fit in the battery compartment he designed. See? Nice, flat, pristine, still in good condition. Oh, that still has a battery connector in there. I should pull that. Like, I had high hopes. I am one of Boxy's original customers, I would say. And you know what? He did some good stuff, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I'm still kind of grumpy that he decided to pursue this project literally only because I was showing this off. But whatever, it is what it is. You can make your own judgments on that. I have my opinion, and since this is literally the second screen I had to put in this thing, it's not a high opinion. Oh, and in case anyone's wondering, these don't work with his either. It's a form factor thing. That's not a it's not a design limitation with either of our designs. It just doesn't work with this form factor. You'd have to put the screen so far offset that it just wouldn't be fun at all to hold. All right, I think that's all I've got. I'm gonna give it another couple minutes. Go find my cat. You have until I finish the tea that has long since cooled down because this was a 3-hour stream and I made this right at the beginning of the stream. And because of who I am as a person, I'm gonna chug it. It's pumpkin spice, by the way, because I'm sure someone's gonna ask. I like it. Dude, it is way too hot outside right now for that to be iced tea. The sun has been down for like 3 hours, and right here it is 11 p.m. It is 96 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those of you who like more sensible units, it's 36 degrees Celsius. 11 p.m. Listen, Ozzy said I need to pick. Yes. We have a guest. He doesn't really fit on the desk though, so you just get to look at his foot. Alright, let's set you down now. He was sleeping. I woke him for this. Well, he wasn't sleeping, but he was getting ready to go to sleep. He don't care about sleep. He just cares about treats. You know, he has a treat preference. I never thought to try it, but I keep two different kinds of treats on hand. I keep the greenies and the like meat sticks. He really likes the meat sticks. I decided to do the whole, you know, which one do you want? And he didn't give a shit about the greenies with the meat sticks out. I think, because it's worth mentioning while we're talking about it, I also have one of the slabs. I have the V1 from before Humble Bazooka forked it off, and before Zypher. Excuse me. Swallowed a little bit of air with that sip of tea. V1 slab. Still totally different form factor, but you know, if it's what you're into, it's pretty decent. What? Alright, let's see if I can do this without demonetizing my channel. Alright guys, I'll catch you all next time. Roy, there was a Boxy Pixel one, you'll have to rewind it back a couple minutes. But anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for sticking with me, thanks for letting me rant, and thanks for being awesome. Cat butt.